Redding is a beautiful place, but it's also full of wonderful people. We have business leaders, community leaders, faith-based leaders, all of them working towards a singular goal, and that's to make this a great place to live. I wanted to showcase these people, give their perception of the place that they call home. This is allredding.
Hey.
Hey.
Adam McElvain, Councilman.
Yeah, good to see you, Joey.
Good to see you too, man. I have to preface it with you're a good friend, a longtime friend. We've been in business together. So I have to give all those disclaimers.
Yeah, we've been working on projects for a decade at least.
A decade, ever since you migrated from Nebraska via Texas, right?
Right.
You were.
Well, I bounced around a little bit. I'd lived in California before, but yeah, wound up here. The last place, Courtney and I were in San Antonio.
And you were in the Air Force.
I was.
And your wife was in the Army.
Yep.
So thank you for your service.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
That's how you lived in California before. I think was it Monterey or?
Yeah, so my wife and I lived, we met in Monterey. We were both linguists. She was in the Army, she was a Korean linguist. I was in the Air Force and was an Arabic linguist. And so we met, fell in love. It was a very romantic place to meet. And when we finished our time in the service, we wanted to live close to our parents to raise our kids. So we made a checklist between Redding and Nebraska, and Redding literally won every category, which is why I love living here. And when people get down on Redding, I'm always really surprised because, if they went and spent a year in Nebraska, they would absolutely love living here.
Yeah.
It's unbelievably different.
I think you just gave up your Nebraska visitor's card, or you're
no
no longer on the.
Come on.
You're no longer on the tourist committee.
I love to go back and visit as long as it's not during the winter time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to Redding, you were talking about, people are, I see that too. I don't see any of the people that are moving here, they're very positive about the place because they've come from somewhere where they're like, oh, you think you have crime here? You don't have crime here. Someone's stealing your lawnmower, that's not crime. You guys don't have the kind of crime that especially the people I meet that come from major cities, Los Angeles, Dallas, where they're like, hey, we deal with major crimes. We have a murder rate. You guys don't have a murder rate.
Right.
You know what I mean? You guys, if anybody gets hurt, it is front page news. So this place is, I moved here from Alaska, but I've been here for most of my life. And there's been times when I thought, Redding, and then you go somewhere else and you go, whoa, wait, I need to get back. So this is an awesome place.
Yeah.
So I don't hear it from any of we got a whole new group of fresh blood moving in, and they know the value of this place. They know how beautiful it is.
But I was just at a conference in Sacramento and spent a lot of time with 30-somethings. And every time I would say I'm from Redding, they would say, I love Redding. I love Redding. I wish I could live there. You guys have so much going for you. But the common theme with those folks was you just don't have the jobs. If you had the jobs that meant something to me and our generation, I think you'd see a lot more people moving to Redding. So, the economic side is really what we need to work on, I think, to get people's attention and get more folks who are prolific entrepreneurs to move to Redding.
When you told me you were running for city council, I was already you had my vote.
Right.
But then when you told me a couple ideas you had, I was like, oh, these are home runs. Like your idea for the internet, the high-speed internet. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. So one of the things when I was really interested in running for the city council, I was trying to think of how, we have resource problems at the city. We need more resources, we need more public safety, we need more police and fire. And that's incredibly important to our quality of life, to helping to eliminate some of these quality of life crimes that are affecting so many people. But how do we get more resources without actually affecting public safety, which is paid for through our general fund? What do we have that's unique to our city that can set us apart from other cities and really create and sustain growth? So one of the things that I did come up with was starting an internet utility that's owned and run by the city, by the people. Mm-hmm. And the reason that I wanted to do that is because there's about, I want to say 50 to 100 cities across the country right now that have gigabit service. Fiber, the real internet, the real fast internet where tech companies can grow and really sort of explode on this type of infrastructure, which is fiber. And so how do we make that happen in Redding? I remember in 2010, the Redding City Council, they applied to be part of Google's initial offering for Google Fiber. And I was at that city council meeting and I thought, this is just fantastic if we could get this in Reading, but I knew we were a long shot.
Oh yeah.
And so we weren't really even looked at seriously. And so I thought, can we do this on our own? And what I discovered is that because we own the electric utility, because the electric utility is publicly owned, that's actually a huge step to getting us to where we need to be, because we already own all the poles and the pipes underground.
Infrastructure.
Right. So we own the infrastructure. It's already owned by the people of the city. That's the biggest hurdle in putting in fiber, is getting jurisdictional approval. So what I decided to do is, a lot of people had looked at this before me. And the difference is that they looked at doing the entire city. So when you look at doing the entire city, that's a little bit more expensive.
It doesn't necessarily pencil out very quickly.
Well, you don't know what the adoption rate's going to be. You don't know how many people are actually going to sign up for the service citywide. And you're really looking at maybe a $40 to $50 million, maybe more, cost to the infrastructure. So what I came up with is, can we do a pilot phase? Can we do a smaller area of town that isn't going to be more, we're not going to bite off more than we can chew, and really show the economic viability of this infrastructure. Mm-hmm. So I started looking around. Obviously, downtown made the most sense. It's the most dense. It's the most diverse area. We have residential, we have commercial, we have office, retail. And so I also looked at, the other serious one that I considered was the Mountain Lakes Industrial Park, mm-hmm. Up off Caterpillar Road. Sure. In that area. But there's about 60 potential customers up there, and downtown has about 600 potential customers. So downtown was the natural place to start. It's about 1/3 of a square mile. Like I said, about 600 potential customers. So the idea is that the city would come in, install the fiber, and offer the service to businesses and residents downtown. A much higher level of service than what's currently available in Reading at a much, much lower cost, so a fraction of the cost. And so if we can get the gigabit fiber service that the average, an average business can afford, that's not several $1,000s, I think you'll see a real transformation in Reading, a real transformation downtown. I think you'll see a real added value to downtown, to having a business downtown, owning property downtown. And we're trying to revitalize downtown at the same time, so this would be a real shot in the arm for that effort. Not to mention, it would help make Reading far more marketable, to these other cities when we're trying to get new businesses, get other businesses' attention. Hey, why Reading? Well, if we have the outstanding K-12 education, we have the incredible outdoor amenities, really endless opportunities, and we have, state-of-the-art 21st century infrastructure. That's a big deal. I think that's a real recipe for success. And so that's what I'm really trying to push, because if we can create that growth, the end game here is growth. We want to create that growth. We want to get more money into city coffers so that we can improve public safety. So that's really how I came up with that, with the internet idea and a few others, is how do we take advantage of what makes us unique to create more growth without affecting public safety. We don't need, I really want to be clear with the internet idea. I don't want to use even $1 from the general fund, which is city tax dollars. I do want to go after state and federal grant money, which is technically our tax dollars, but it wouldn't be taking any money from our city coffers, from police and fire. But I do want to go after state and federal grant money for this.
Well, that's been allocated anyway, so we might
Correct.
as well. Why you don't go after it, then it goes to another community. It's already
Right.
been allocated. Why can't it come here? I've heard two arguments against, which both of them have made no sense. One is just why don't you figure out something else? It's like, wow, okay, that's great. And your solution is they don't have one. The second one is, you're going to take money from people that already have this infrastructure. So what you're taking it from is AT&T and Charter, two places that siphon money out of the area that goes somewhere else. If you look at the number of employees, the Charter employees and AT&T employees actually in this city versus how much money is going towards that internet, the vast majority of money is being taken out of Reading and it's going to headquarters or wherever, which I'm not, that's not evil, but we can keep it here. That money, not only can we get a better class of service at a better rate, but that money stays right here. That just gets reinvested in the community. So that's why I think your idea is a win-win idea. And so I'm hoping that you can get your peers to see the validity of this idea and get this pushed through.
Yeah, me too. It's and I'm not one that wants the the government to compete with the private sector. That's not part of who I am. But this is infrastructure, and I think this is what the government's for, is infrastructure. And what's really interesting, if you look at the parallels, almost exactly 100 years ago, the country was really going through the same thing with electricity. Electricity was first sold by the private sector commercially, and it started growing and growing. And then cities and communities around the country got together and said, hey, we can offer a better level of service at a cheaper rate. And so they became publicly owned electric utilities. And that's, Redding REU was created in 1921, I want to say, maybe 1924, but nearly 100 years ago. And so, and I would argue that it's been the number one economic driver that the city has had. I mean, last year, if we'd paid the rates that are in the county, just outside of the city limits.
Insane.
REU saved the ratepayers $30 million in 1 year.
That's money that stays right here.
That's money that stays in the economy that we don't have to pay in higher electric rates.
It doesn't go to headquarters in Los Angeles and then get dispersed among shareholders. It stays right here.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, doing our downtown isn't going to have a significant impact, I believe, on the private sector. We did get a white paper from Charter the day of the council meeting when I was going for approval at about 3 hours before the meeting. So I read through it, and it was very interesting. Obviously, I felt some of the information was cherry-picked, to make their argument.
What?
And some of their arguments were, a bit hyperbolic. They stated, governments are infrastructure is crumbling, roads are falling apart. You don't want to invest in new infrastructure. But what's very interesting is towards the end of the white paper, they made an argument that if, when you do publicly owned internet service, you actually drive down competition. They say, local governments will make the argument that you're going to create more competition. They said you actually drive it down because the private sector can't compete. And I thought, this is absurd that they would put this in their white paper, because they're proving the point that we can offer a lower cost and a higher service than the private sector. So I really just saw that as confirmation that we're moving down the right path on this. And yeah, I will keep pushing forward. So right now I'm putting together a small private group of private sector experts that are local. And so we're really fleshing out the information to go back to the city council to get approval.
To me, anyone who argues against this either hasn't done any research or they have an interest in it not succeeding. They are, you know what I mean?
Right, they have a dog in the hunt.
Yeah, they have a dog in the hunt, because
Right.
it's a no-brainer.
One of the things about having our own publicly owned internet is that we get local control. And I don't know if you've been following the net neutrality issues that we see at the
Yes.
federal government.
Yes.
So net neutrality is a big issue for me. I don't think that the majority of citizens understand the value of net neutrality, or maybe even what it is. But as you saw recently, they just altered the rules a little bit. They didn't allow the fast lane, slow lane, but now they're allowing ISPs to sell your information and make money off of that. So what's really nice about if we own the ISP as a people, as the citizens of Redding, we can keep that information private. We can eliminate fast lane, slow lane, and that's going to have such a tremendous value to the consumers, especially if the federal government, which I don't want to happen, but if they allow, more manipulation with internet providers and what the private sector can do, and we own our own internet provider and we keep net neutrality in place, that's going to be very attractive, especially to, people our age and people that understand the internet and wanting that internet freedom. It's just going to be a tremendous value to the consumer.
Do you want to touch upon that fast lane, slow lane, and the idea that they sell the data?
Well, so the reason that what's happened, and I understand, in the private sector, always competing to increase that bottom line, but what's transpired is Google, Amazon, Facebook, all these other mega companies that are online, they sell your information, to marketers. It's very lucrative. So the internet providers want in on the game, and they're saying, hey, if Google can sell your information, why can't Charter sell your information? So they do, and they can.
Did Charter mention that in the white paper they gave you? Their
they
future potential profits that you would be. Did they mention that?
They did not mention that.
Shocker.
The fast lane, slow lane though hasn't started yet, but I'd imagine that if we continue down this trend, that it'll probably be around the corner here in a couple years, and that's going to be detrimental, to everyone's internet use, because it's going to. It's just going to allow the mega corporations to continue to get to the consumer. whereas the little guys, the startups, the mom and pop shops online are going to have a very difficult time.
Can you explain that? Because I know what you're talking about, but I don't know if the average person understands like who gets the fast lane and who's in the slow lane.
If you could explain it, it'd be like letting charter come in and run all of our roads in the city. And hey, we're just gonna, we're gonna let our friends who we like use the fast lanes in town. And there's gonna be a lot of people on the slow lane. They may not get through. So it's gonna take away the very basic freedom that's made the internet great. And what that is it's one guy, that has a little bit of knowledge on code, making a piece of software or a new website, a new solution that's seen by 1 million people the next day.
It's proliferated innovation.
Correct.
It's a huge, huge contributor to innovation, monstrous. I don't think anything has ever come close to it in human history. Mm-hmm. And the idea that you can make, a corporate site is going to be very fast. Their information is going to be fast. But whenever you go to, let's say, John Public or Sally Public's website where they're blogging or they're making, and they're not part of that clique, their website's served very slowly. And we know, you and I study this a lot, that a website that's even a second slow, people say, what, a second, no big deal. No, the information is in, it's overwhelming that if people have to wait a second, a half a second, they won't go there anymore.
Yeah.
So what you'll basically be doing is you'll be steering all the people to the sites that are paying, the big boys that are paying. It's these small little battles that add up pretty soon to where you can't really find the truth. You get their version of the truth because they've throttled off, and who knows what the truth is. What I want is balanced information, and I want to be able to go find information I want and then make my choice. We don't want you to read that kind of stuff. We don't want you to listen to that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. We want you to focus on what we want. I don't think that's ever good.
Keep it free. I mean, it's the cornerstone of our country.
But you had another idea about harnessing the nuclear energy that we're getting bombarded with every day.
Yeah.
And I loved you had a tagline when you said it. I remember when you announced
I can't remember what the tagline was.
It was...
You'll have to remind me.
Oh, and I'm going to have to paraphrase it pretty poorly. It was something about the dam project of the future. Just like Shasta Dam.
We built Shasta Dam, which has served, this area for the better part of a century. And we need to build a new Shasta Dam.
That's right.
That captures the sun. And it's already happening, and I've been working on that since I got elected, and some things have changed. I think there'll be more things changing here shortly, and I'll continue to push that effort the whole time that I'm serve on the council. But we want to, Redding is the second sunniest city in the country, and that's a fact. If you go to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration website, they have the top 10, sunniest cities or maybe more. Redding is second only to Yuma, Arizona, so this is from the federal government that these statistics came from. So we're the sunniest city in California. The state of California is requiring that we use more renewable energy. And we have to now be 50% by 2030. And I know the state legislature has said that they want to move that up to 2025. So we have some real pressures beyond what we want to do, but what we're going to be legally bound to do with our electric utility. So the renewable energy that makes by far the most sense, obviously, in Redding is solar, because we get so much sun. And it's not just that we get so much, it's that we have these uninterrupted days of sunlight where there's no clouds. That's a big deal because the clouds really, disturb the production on the solar panels. Mm-hmm. So, my approach is multifaceted. I want to make it as easy and streamlined as possible for businesses and residents to install a solar project on their own property. This is important because, it's energy independence for those people. It's cost savings on their utilities. It's a job creator. It creates clean jobs, living wage jobs. So something that's really important to the community all around. And so I want to make it as easy as possible for businesses and residents. I think we need to pursue the community solar, where groups of businesses or residents get together, identify a central location, and they put money into where there's multiple investors in on the same project, and then they all reap the benefits of that. And then I also think that we need to do utility grade solar, which is bigger, much bigger projects.
That's what I was referring to.
Through the utility, and I think you'll see some of that happening probably here in the next 2 or 3 years, where we announce doing a major utility grade project.
Excellent.
That scale. But it does need to be multifaceted. You know, it can't just be the utility. It can't just be the consumer side. I think that if we all work together, because you know, I would like to see by 2030 that the city of Redding is producing more than half of its power from solar. It will never be
by
all
when?
By 2030.
Well, like you said, that's legal.
We
right?
do.
That's
We do.
mandated.
We get some.
So we have to.
It's a very positive thing for our area. And when we get to the other side of this, you know, we're the city getting the most sun. We're going to see the biggest return on investment from our solar investments more than anywhere else. So I think it's very important. I think it will be a big part of our future.
No, I'm glad to hear you say that, because we haven't got to talk about it since, you know, I just assumed whenever I had seen kind of, there was a little bit of a pushback on it, so I didn't know how far it had gotten down, but I'm glad to hear that you guys are taking that very serious, because it becomes politicized. You know, I was talking to, I had Dr. Aaron Seaton on here, and we were talking about how so many of these topics get politicized, and it becomes this left, right, us, them, and it's like, guys, this transcends, don't let politics get involved. This is about us capturing energy. This is about us, you know, because I have not heard anyone who says, you know what, I need my electric bill to go up a little bit. It's just, I feel like I'm not giving enough. Everyone's complaining about, even though we only pay 16 cents a kilowatt hour in RAU, they're still like, I remember when I paid 11, this is, you know, bogus. And it's like, well, it's not going to get better. They don't have it projected to go down. It's going up. So if you want to address it, this is a positive for everybody.
And I'd love to go over, you know, in some of the details, but some things are still unrolling, and as soon as they're confirmed, you know, I'd be happy to talk about.
We'll have you come back.
The successes that we've had in that area.
The government did something a few years ago that you were telling me about. I don't know if it just produced a paper or if but it said, you know, ISPs should be municipalities, right? They should be owned by municipalities.
That was Google.
Was that Google that did it?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said it was a government.
So Google started in 2010, and I think they have 7 or maybe 9 cities now. And you know, a few months ago, actually it's probably been about a year, they decided to back away from fiber installations. They still maintain the ones that they have. But if you remember, when they started this in 2010, they weren't trying to take over the market. They weren't trying to do the entire country. They were coming out to say, hey, here's how you do it, and here's why it's so valuable. And I think one of the reasons Google stepped up and did that is because they saw that the United States was falling behind rapidly as far as other nations in our bandwidth and our access to the internet and our speeds. And we're 15th or 16th now in the world.
Yeah,
Is
crazy.
that unbelievable? I mean, we invented the internet and we're in 15th place. So their real motivation was to go out and show the country how it's done. And they recently backed away. And the two main reasons, the first reason that they said was jurisdictional approval was our biggest hurdle. You know, working with 5 or 6 different jurisdictions to try and get approval to put a system in. And their second biggest hurdle was the cost to dig. So in our situation, if we do our downtown, we don't have the first hurdle at all because we are the jurisdiction. And the second hurdle, our downtown is almost completely covered by utility poles. So we don't have to do any digging, maybe a little bit, but probably not. And so we have a huge advantage to do our downtown. And Google also said, when they announced this, that they said the responsibility really falls on the carriers and the utilities to put in this infrastructure, not us. You know, we wanted to show how it was done. So we are the utility. And so it's something I think we should take very serious, and you know, I'm looking forward to making it happen.
Speaking of Google and both those projects, I remember several years ago they built some big solar array farms and open sourced all of their design ideas. So the same kind of concept where they were like, hey, look, we consume a lot of energy. We came up with these really efficient ways to capture solar energy and disperse it. And here you go, here's all of our designs for free. And the idea is, you know, similar, that people would replicate that. So, hey, Google, yeah.
Right.
I drank the Google Kool-Aid. You know, they're a big corporation and everything, but, you know, I'm not going to go back to pre-Google days. I remember Lycos. I remember Alta Vista. You couldn't find anything. What are you talking about? It's horrible.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought you were a Bing guy.
A Bing guy?
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Every now and then I search Yahoo, just to give them some business. You know what I mean? They're like Yahoo is like, it's like a friend that's got a subpar coffee shop. Every now and then I go and buy coffee. I usually walk out and throw it in a trash can. I just want to give them a little business, make them feel good about themselves. Yahoo's horrible, and Bing is,
I like Bing. I actually went to DuckDuckGo.
Oh yeah, there you go.
About 6 or 8 months ago.
Oh wow.
I haven't looked back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some tools that I use that are Google tools, but as far as a general search engine, I haven't used them in a long time.
So you're part owner in Pacific Sky, and I know we have a little bit of overlap in what we do, but you guys actually do a ton of stuff, in branding and.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about your business?
So we do full stack web services. We do video production. We do everything print, branding, PR, media buying. So, we work with medium to large size organizations. We do a lot of branding. Some of the, we rebranded One Safe Place. We rebranded UPrep, which just happened. There's a few others that we're working with right now that we're rebranding, which we can't talk about until that news becomes public. It's very exciting because, when you get together, you get to put a whole campaign together that involves the print and the video and the web, and everything's got to work cohesively. I mean, I don't know if you remember when the Shasta Women's Refuge and the Family Justice Center merged to make One Safe Place. We did that entire campaign. It was incredibly successful. The name, we thought it was going to take about a year for people to catch on to the name, but it took only 2 to 4 months. And
very
really
nice.
Everybody in town was familiar with One Safe Place.
Oh, very nice.
And so we're growing.
You've been a busy man.
It's very busy.
And
There's always a lot of
husband
work.
and father to 2 good-looking kids.
Yep, and a few other various community responsibilities, but it's, couldn't be happier.
Are you producing any memes?
Yes.
Anything I should know about?
I don't make memes at work, but I do.
Disclaimer.
When I'm not at work.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Don't let your memes be dreams.
Yeah? Oh,
Right. They're just so interesting, and when I look at memes and their ability to communicate, really remember like those old World War II posters that you see so much, and it's like they were memeing during World War II.
Oh, absolutely.
And we're just memeing today on the internet. I think people think it's sort of a new thing.
The iconic female flexing with the
Right.
with the
the
absolutely.
Uncle Sam, we want you.
Exactly.
Those are all memes. So
yeah.
It's fun to be a part of that culture online because it's sort of feels very current.
We're in a time right now where honesty and transparency is rare, and it is very valued.
I would agree, honesty and integrity is so refreshing. I think even with the younger generation, I know it's interesting when you see like our parents' generation or kind of the older generation, very concerned about this young generation, but they get it. They've been online since they were whenever, but they recognize the BS when they see it. They recognize online BS better than we do. And better than much better than our parents do.
Yes.
Because their friends have been doing it to them since they were 8 years old. So they recognize the bogus information or bad content. There's other terms for it online that I can't say here.
This idea of just like put up a false front, lie, get that quick buck. And it's like, sorry, that has no longevity. That's
that's exactly what it is with our business, and what you said is the longevity. We, when we take a client, as I imagine you do, we're looking at them as a partner, and having a long-term relationship.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Hey, Adam, thanks a lot for coming in. I know you're a busy man.
Yeah.
And I'm rooting for you.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
I'm hoping to have you back on here, and next time you can tell us about, some of the successes with these projects you've talked about, and
that'd be great.
And your desire to help this community.
Yeah.
So
maybe I could bring some memes.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank
All
you,
right.
sir.
Yeah, thanks
Have a
so
good
much.
one.
Yep.